Given that it's 7:01, I think let's go ahead and start. This is the April 15th Flood Prevention, Climate Resilience, and Erosion Control Board meeting. And I'd like to just go around and have everyone announce who they are for the record. This is Becky Bunnell, Chair.
This is John Dilley, Vice Chair.
Carolyn Camlett, Secretary.
Greg Podleski, member.
John Fallon, member. James Posey, member.
Prue O'Brien, Recording Secretary.
Is that all? Is Keith there, or is anyone else there?
Nope.
No.
So,
I am here, but he's not on the board. Right.
So what I'd like to propose then is that we have John and Carolyn be elevated to full members for the purposes of maintaining a quorum and being able to vote. Do I have a second?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, do we have a second?
Greg made the motion.
I'll second that motion. John Dilley.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so if we've got, so we have, that makes a quorum then, so we can proceed with the rest of the
Keith
meeting.
just came in, Becky.
I already missed the vote. Aye.
Keith just came in, Becky.
Okay.
I come in bringing greetings from planning and zoning.
Oh.
Well, Don is not here, so it's still okay to, I think, elevate both John and Carolyn up. All right, so I'd like to call the meeting to order then, obviously, and move to agenda item number 1, which is to hear, consider, and act upon the minutes of the March 18th meeting. Can I ask if anyone had any comments on the minutes?
Yeah, I had one minor one.
Okay.
Yeah. You've got a name in there, John Dillon, which I think is either me or John Dilley. On A1, somewhere in A1, towards the end of that.
I'm doing.
Is it John?
Can you hear that, Becky?
I think you were both in attendance, right?
No, but I'm saying, but you see that? I don't have it with me, but it says John Dillon at the bottom of in section 1A. That's why I was looking at something different.
And what, John, what should that have been? Was that you or John Dilley that should have been correctly listed there?
Well, I think it was me because I think it said John.
Oh, this is John Fallon.
Oh, here you go. That right there.
Oh, on the second page.
At the top. See the top?
Jonathan Dilley. And John Dillon seconded?
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So it should have been John Fallon then.
All right. Anything else? All right.
Any other observations or requests for amendments? Hearing none, I'd like to see if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, approved. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 2, which is update and discussion on status of active projects. The only one I'm really up to speed on, Bill Hurley is on vacation this week, so I wasn't able to get a complete update. But we are moving forward with the Rooster River dredging project, and the team is working with the neighbors to get, do outreach for the dredging and get easements as needed for that dredging. And that's happening, I believe, next week. That'll be starting. And I think as those of you who were able to go on the site visit You remember that it was that's the stretch between 59 on down. So the other project.
So in the Lynbrook area.
I think it's just below Lynbrook, right?
Well,
Then we.
It's right where Bridgeport, where we were in Bridgeport for a little while, and we were looking at we were on the bridge looking over it.
Yeah, it was bridge to
and
bridge.
then
Remember?
Down, and then we looked in from the Bridgeport side over.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the Bridgeport side
Yeah,
over,
that
and
would
then
be the
on down to the bridge, the following bridge that's lower down. Then
And
we all were
if they're starting next week, what are they?
Well, I think they're doing the public outreach, so people have to be aware of what's happening. We have to get neighborhood comments. So that process will take about 4 weeks, is what I think Bill had said last time. Just to get comments and if there are easements that are needed to get into that space to do dredging, that he has to work with the neighbors to get those easements. So 4 weeks is probably the minimum.
So that would be something that would be good for those.
Yeah, it could again.
They're looking.
The objective for right now is to do the outreach, and then we would do the surveying. So then that survey would be compared to the elevation of the river bottom in the 60s, which I think that's what Bill said, that would be compared to. And then, assuming that we've got a foot or two that we can dredge, then the dredging would be after that. So there's a series of steps that have to happen before we would actually do the dredging.
So it would seem would be helpful if the people, if that outreach was included through the Friends of the Rooster River, that potentially. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah. My suggestion would be that let's reach out to Mega Jane, who is, I believe, probably leading this while Bill's out, and just ask, would she be helpful? Would it be helpful for her to have your mailing list, or for her to give you a paragraph or whatever that you can send out, just so people are aware of what's going on?
Who am I
Mega
contacting
Jane,
for that? Megan?
Mega, MEGHA,
Mega
Jane, JAIN.
Okay.
Okay, then we
I
think we all saw sort of the status of where we are on the Riverside Drive tide gates when we were doing the walkthrough. They're still putting pilings in and steel in, I think, at this point, but it looks like it's progressing on track. I did not get a chance to get down to Perry's Green. I've been traveling, but my guess is that's pretty much all completed at this point. I'm assuming. If not, it's just minor seeding of grass and landscaping is my guess. But I'll get down and look at that this coming week. So that's the only updates I have at this point. Does anyone else have any update on any of the active projects? Okay, hearing none, I'm proposing we move on to agenda item number 3, which is an update on the 24-25 Master Flood and Resilience Plan. I was not able to talk with Eli today. I will reach out to him tomorrow and try to get a status update. I think most of you are aware our 6-week team meeting was canceled last week. And Eli was following up with the consultant to get a sense of what the next steps are and the timing for the next steps. So right now we're just waiting to reschedule that meeting, is my understanding. But I have not gotten a chance to talk to Eli and get any feedback on that at this point. So kind of we're a little on hold, but presumably, the objective of that 6-week meeting was to do a gap analysis and to have the consultant sort of do a review of the literature that they read and any gaps and missing information that they feel they need, so that we could either provide that for them or figure out a way for us to get them the information they need to proceed. So that's really the step that we're waiting for, and we're kind of on hold until we hear back from the consultant and from Eli what the next steps are. What I can tell you is that we have not been assigned a new project manager yet, so I think that's why things are a little bit in limbo right now. Eli had said to me that he didn't know that he had the bandwidth to take it on himself, so I think he's trying to find a way to get a project manager assigned to our project.
What happened to Wendy?
We don't know. I was told she was on a leave, but I don't know how long of a leave. It was not explained other than she is on leave right now.
Understand.
So we're it's unfortunate. It puts us back a little bit. The other thing I wanted to get from Eli, which impacts obviously the timeline of the project, is where we stand with FEMA and the elimination of the notice of violation on Penfield, because that's going to be a key part of obviously this master plan. When I did talk to Eli about a week ago, he said he had not been able to schedule anything yet with FEMA, and he was going to follow up directly with his contact at FEMA. So again, hopefully I will get an update on that as well when I'm able to contact him this week. So what I will do is send out a email to the FIRB board once I've talked to Eli, and give you a status update at that point. That's
one other thing maybe to consider in asking. One other thing to potentially consider asking for Eli is when the consultants are coming back to complete their site reviews.
I will ask if they have a schedule for site visits. Okay. Any other questions that anyone wants me to ask, or any other follow-ups on this?
Yeah, Becky, this is John Dilley. I just want to let you know that the Harbor Management Commission, I spoke with the Vice Chair, Don Hyman, about getting on the agenda to present this plan to them, so they were aware and solicited their feedback. So they met today, and I also connected with the Shellfish Commission, John Short Chair, and he's going to have me on the agenda for May.
Okay. Well, actually, that's a good. I was going to do that on item 5, but why don't we actually do that now? I know that if everyone could, Greg, I think you've already met with the boards and commission that you were going to meet with, and Keith, I think you were meeting with them earlier.
With the inland wetlands.
And what was the feedback that you got from that?
Yeah, well, I was late.
Okay, it's Greg. I met with the inland wetlands at their last regular meeting. I just gave them the brief overview of the master plan. Gave them the briefest of outlines of what we were studying, and reassured them that we would certainly keep them advised if for any work that would potentially involve their jurisdiction, and they seemed very appreciative.
Great, thank you.
Keith, I was just I was tardy for a good reason. That I was at fire headquarters with their planning and zoning. They are very interested in interacting with with us about the things that are going to be complementary, particularly about impermeable surfaces and things that might impact. They had a number of questions that they are now going to put together and send to us that were real specific about things that they wanted to know about. One of them had to do with the Connecticut Storm Water Manual from September of 2024 that was engineering following this?
Yes, they are. I will assure you they are.
I would, but I couldn't say that, but I think you're probably.
I don't know it for a fact, but I will assure you they are.
Well, we will have an opportunity to answer back to them when they send, but they're gonna send the emails to me, with their specific questions. But it was basically how the interactions of the boards, were they following the Connecticut Storm, water manual? And were we looking at, was part of this master plan considering just protecting what we have now versus versus development in new areas and then having to put in new resiliency pieces?
Well, the stormwater manual and the soil erosion sediment control manual mandate very strict adherence for stormwater treatment and mitigation, and encourages the reduction in directly connected impervious areas. And the reason it's encouraged and not mandated is there's very little you can do to force it on anything that somebody doesn't bring forward.
Okay. Again, these are things we can answer as very specific pieces.
But that's absolutely included in virtually every site plan review.
Everything that I've heard since I've been here has been looking at not only what we protect now, but what the future is going to hold for Fairfield. But again, that's something that we as a board can answer that question when they send it to us directly. I told them that we would likely have something to bring to them from this plan to their August or September meeting, and they were happy with that.
Okay, terrific. So the only two people who have met, John, have you met with, John Fallon, you were Parks and Rec, right?
Yes, I met with Anthony a couple of weeks ago. He strongly recommended not going in front of the commission. At this point, if we don't have options and recommendations, he said Bill Hurley was there, just prior, kind of explaining things, which I think we've talked to Bill, and he let us know what they thought of various recommendations or possible recommendations. So he's gonna, he said, look, I'll tell him what you guys are up to, just to kind of get on the record. But he said you probably are better off not coming. And when you guys have more information, when we get recommendations back from the consultants, that would be a better time to talk with them.
Okay. So we should probably listen to their next meeting and just make sure that the commission was informed that there is this plan going on. That Anthony did indeed follow up and let them know that.
Yeah, and I'm gonna send a note. Yeah, their meeting's coming up because I think it was delayed a week. So I told Anthony I was going to send him a note before the meeting just as a reminder, and he said that was fine.
Terrific.
And I'll forward on the note. I'll forward on the note that you put together, that kind of paragraph on what was happening, just so he has that. And if he wants to read that to them, he could read that to them. If you're fine with that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fine. Okay, and then Carolyn, were you going to get to remind me, was the neighborhood?
Well, I don't want to reach out to the neighborhood organizations till we have something to say to them. We need to give them, now that we're sort of in a holding pattern, it's sort of hard to update folks on next steps. We didn't, if we had some idea of timing, and even the site visits, even noting that they are going to be happening, even if we don't give a date, but the associations will be confused if we, it's sort of like Parks and Rec, they need to have something to chew on. Unless you have a different suggestion, but,
no, I
certainly can send one to all the associations, but.
I think the only reason possibly to send a note out to all the associations is just to alert them that we are doing this plan, and that if people have any particular flooding concerns they want us to look at, that they feed that into us sooner rather than later. Because if someone has a major flooding issue and doesn't tell us, until eight months from now, that's not very helpful. in terms of being able to really.
Right, I think I did that. Yeah, I can go back and send something different than we sent before when we were introducing the whole idea and the plans and the dates of the other meetings, just let them know.
Okay.
I'll put
Did
something
you
together
get any
and send it to you
response?
to see if
Did you get any
that
response?
same paragraph that she sent
that
out.
same paragraph, oh, yeah.
Just, edit it if it has to be edited, that's all planning, just give that, and that should cover it.
You mean the original note?
What
that
she
you
gave
sent
us a
out?
couple weeks ago.
I have that, so I can adapt that, sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I guess.
The other piece that I would offer is that if any,
Go ahead.
Turn this on, does this mean anything? Would this help? For... Oh, no, it's probably better.
It might already be on.
It's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that if they have anybody that would like to, have a visit for looking at how their flooding is occurring, certainly on the Brewster River
Willing,
side,
able to do that, sure.
that I'd be happy to come down and do that.
Okay, so I think that's it. Is there anyone I've missed that was working with one of the boards or commissions? Okay, good. Well, thank you all for following up and keeping in touch. And obviously, we'll just be following up with most of these commissions and boards once we actually have concept level drawings to share. Okay, why don't we move on to agenda item number 4, which is to review the town planning and zoning text amendments to limit new permeable surfaces. Greg, I thought you had some very good comments, and I tried to sort of capture those comments in a letter that we would send to planning and zoning, which was attached to the agenda when we sent out this meeting. I don't know if anyone got a chance to look at that or had any comments on Greg's comments.
Just one thing, it's a concern of mine with the, I don't care if you make it to 100 feet apart for parking, making it as of right. I just spend too much time around too many developers that are looking to find any glitch they can. If it's an as of right, somebody's going to find a crowbar to put in that wedge, and they're going to end up doing something that the town is not going to like. There might be a way to go and phrase it where the town would encourage it in some fashion. I'm not sure exactly how, but the as of right and the 1,000 feet is, I don't see how that's at all practical. The parking lot, maybe down in the center, where you have all these little shops,
right.
front to front, side to side, but the Black Rock Turnpike, it's a disaster. You can't even, if for example, if Aldi were to use Stop and Shop as alternate parking, there's no way that people are going to be crossing Tungus Hill Cutoff to actually use those parking. So it's a really good idea. Definitely something to be encouraged. I've seen it used before, but when it becomes as of right, I just see that being potentially hugely exploited.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, the payment in lieu of, I would strongly discourage anybody from doing anything with that unless and until the town attorney looks at it hard and deep, because Milford, about 5 years ago, not only did we lose in court, we lost in the appellate court. I'm not a lawyer, but it certainly seems to me a parallel legal principle. And then once you've lost that, you've lost everything. So it's got to be really well thought out from the legal perspective before you implement any sort of payment in lieu of.
Okay. Greg, when I was reading it...
Can a letter be sent with those questions?
I'm sorry.
I think that's a key piece.
Yeah.
So the letter
Well, I had the same thought about the attorney. but so I wouldn't want to send a letter saying we think this is all a great idea.
No, I would not.
You know, as it stands now, and these two are major concerns, so I don't know if a letter can be written with, you know, questions about these two, or if planning and zoning can be reached out in some other way. I mean, the payment in lieu of, I don't know why they're not in caution about that. I mean, I'm not an attorney, and I'm like reading it first, like going, what?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Hopefully the developers are gonna do the right thing all the time.
How much time do you spend working with developers?
Yeah, right.
Don't. My 2 cents echoes these, I think. I don't think I would, if I wouldn't have us, the letter saying urging adoption of this. I think there's too many questions about it. I think there's different sides to it that we don't know. I agree that there's going to be loopholes and carve-outs and exploitation of words, and it could hurt shoppers, it could hurt parkers, it could hurt a lot of different folks that we don't know, and it could hurt the town ultimately if there's no parking for anybody in town because everybody is using the same parking for their 1,000 feet of off-street parking. So I think if we could send a letter saying something like, we support the idea of looking on ways to mitigate, impacts against blah, blah, blah. But I would not, personally, I don't think it's not our bailiwick, and I don't think we should be urging and adopting this plan when it, at least from my perspective, we don't have the expertise, we don't have the experience, we don't have, a lot of this, that I think we should let them do what they're doing. We could help them in other ways. Maybe some of our studies would piggyback on that. But, what they're doing too, I mean, some of these things already exist and they're expanding them. So there's already a 500-foot rule. So they're going to make it 1,000, and they're opening up to a lot of different districts. I'd love to know personally what happened with the current, why are we doing this, and what's been the reaction to the current laws or rules that's making us want to do this. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I was just kind of curious why we were being asked to weigh in on this too. I'm new here.
Conceptually, it's to reduce the amount of impervious areas, which will reduce the runoff, which will reduce flood potential.
Yep. Okay. There's the connection. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
It's good
think
to know, but we're not writing these.
It's not even in areas that are really flood related that we are involved with. I mean,
everywhere is flood related. Might not be flood vulnerable.
No, understood.
But
I think again, I'm getting away. I think one of our focuses is on kind of more major events, and so anyway, I just don't think that's our bailiwick to be in right now, and.
But can I ask
the
a question?
concept is good. The concept is consistent.
Yeah, I like
the concept's consistent with the purpose of this board.
Yeah, I support Greg on this. I think this is absolutely.
Somebody said unintended consequences. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I think of this.
I think this is absolutely something that Flood should be weighing in on. I think some good points have been made that we probably are not in a position at this point to comment specifically on the way to reduce the number of parking spaces, but the concept of reducing the number of, impervious surfaces is a great idea, and something we should absolutely be advocating for. I do think we should write a letter, though, and I think we should highlight the 2 issues that Greg brought up, the idea of payment in lieu having a fairly substantial risk given the Milford situation, and the 1,000-foot limit should be qualified in a way that protects, that mitigates, the inconvenience that a shopper might face if we really limit the parking that egregiously that you can't find anything for 1,000 feet. My understanding is you don't have to cross major roads. I think they had specified within their amendment that you would not be crossing, the 1,000 feet would not be across major roads. But I might have misread that.
I mean, what my response to that would be, though, that I understand those objections, 2 objections, and I agree with them, but there may be other objections, too, that we don't, again, I just don't think we know enough about this to lay out 2 objections, and there may be 5 others that we would object to if we knew a little bit more about what's happening. So, you know, we could put a kind of a for instance if we wanted to, but to say we're in support except for X and Y, again, me personally, I wouldn't do that because it feels like then we're good with everything else except X and Y. And I would not be okay with X and Y until I knew a whole lot more of what was going on.
And those X and Y doesn't sound like it's a whole lot to do with flooding, right? The flooding is the more general concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think is, we can say, we're in favor of less impermeable, right, doing it right?
Less impervious area.
Areas. We were in favor of that. How that gets implemented is kind of, that's not our.
Yeah.
That's not.
I was thinking about Greg's comments, and I thought the fee in lieu of should be put towards repaving the existing surfaces with pervious surfaces.
Nice idea. Pervious pavement in New England is generally a nightmare. Just case in point, Subway 10 years ago thought it was a really good idea for one of their office buildings to put in pervious concrete pavement. They could, at that time, they were very, very strong financially, very committed to it, and they couldn't make it work. The maintenance is crazy. You have to vacuum the surface a couple times a year. Any small particles, silts, sands will tend to clog the pores. If you don't clean them out regularly, they become impacted. And if the base underneath it isn't perfect, you will get areas where you'll get concentrations of water. And then when you get sub-freezing temperatures, you'll get heaves and it'll damage the pavement. There are applications where it can be done. Actually, I think Yukon has some locations where it has worked, but those are on smaller scales. And again, I'm not opposed to it. The concept's great. But it's making it work in New England that's the problem.
So we
again,
have
I'm not saying no. I'm absolutely not saying no. I like what we had at the beach.
So in our train station parking lot, we have a combination of permeable surface and impervious surface, and it seems to be working well at this point,
Okay.
to my knowledge. So to your point, Greg, I think, we must be maintaining it to the degree that's allowing it to continue to have
I guess so.
that same level of impervious. All right, so let me recap what I've heard. I think what I'm hearing is that as a board, we want to recognize the work that this group is doing and say that in concept, we are in favor of less permeable, impervious surfaces and of managing our parking within the town towards that end. However, we have 2 areas that we'd like them to consider, in addition to others that they might, feel that they should consider as they move this project forward. One is the payment in lieu, and note the Milford lawsuit example, and also flag that we think that 1,000-foot limit may be.
I'll see if I could get the.
Go ahead.
I'll see if I could get the case reference.
Oh, that would probably be helpful. And I think the other thing is I do think we should flag that the 1,000-foot limit may not be applicable to all parts of town, and that they might want to consider modifying that to be site specific or somehow.
If it's related to flooding in a town. I mean, I think we should stick with things that are related to flooding.
Well, all of this is related to flooding. I mean, the whole reason we have flooding in the Rooster River, a large part of the flooding we get in Rooster River is because of the impervious surfaces in the Trumbull shopping mall sending water down to us. I mean, it's, you know, anytime the water can't
But I'm not
naturally
sure that
sink into the ground, it's gonna impact some level of flooding. So that is within our purview.
Absolutely. That's why I think that general concept is what we want to bring across. But I'm not sure that, I mean, I don't even understand what, in lieu of, how that impacts flooding, right? Is that?
Well, what they would offer, you as a developer can come in and say, zoning says I require 100 parking spaces, I only want to put in 80 spaces, here's X amount of dollars to the town for me not to put in those other 20 spaces, so that some nebulous concept, somebody's gonna find a place to provide that additional parking.
I mean, I think that's great to tell them that.
In concept, yes, but my biggest concern with it is the as of right.
Tell me how that impacts flooding.
Because they're gonna end up with a situation where they don't have nearly enough parking, and then they're gonna come back afterwards and say, oh, we didn't realize we don't have enough parking, you gotta give us the parking, and then what do you do?
And could it spawn more buildings because there's less parking and I've got more space to put a building on there? And so we're not doing anything.
And buildings are generally sized by how much parking do I need? How much space?
To reduce that, I can have a bigger building. So you're not really saving any ground because you're just moving it from a parking lot to a building. So anyway, I just think there's too many questions that we shouldn't be approving.
It's the as of right part that scares the heck out of me. Encouragement, absolutely. The concept is a good concept. I mean, just as an example, where Chips and Vespino's is, that parking lot is ginormous. Since they put it up, I've never seen the thing more than maybe 2/3 full, and that's before Christmas. So the entire parking lot. And sections are full, but the whole thing. And if you could go and merge that so it worked with other people or cut it down on something, great idea. But it's when you get to the as of right, then the town cedes all control to a developer.
I absolutely think that's the case. I just don't know how we as a flood board have expertise to comment on that. That sounds like a legal problem to me. But I feel as the Flood Erosion Control Board, it's pertinent to us because it's a good idea, and if it ends up not performing the way it's intended, and gets abused by developers, and we end up, as John said, we end up with just as much impervious area, but larger buildings. You know, what have we accomplished? And so, to my understanding, that it is a direct concern. So commenting on it from this would be pertinent. Okay.
Okay. So I will redraft a letter trying to capture some of what we have talked about here and resend it out to everyone, and then we can comment via email and do approvals via email as next steps. The only other point I would make on this is that I would love to encourage, and I know, I don't know how we mandate this, but maybe we make it as a suggestion that possibly any of the areas that would have been parking spaces get turned into landscaped bioswales and other natural and green spaces, which would mitigate, which would really help a lot with the flooding, and also make it such that they don't just reduce the number of parking spaces to build a bigger building. And it would open up green space. I don't know that we can encourage, I don't know that we can mandate that, but I would certainly want to encourage something like that. Okay, let us move on then to our last agenda item, which is to hear, consider, and act upon any other business which will come before the board. Does anyone have any other business that they would like to bring up? Does any member of the public, member of the public like to share a comment or?
This is Dick. I have no comments or.
Okay. So I would like to propose that we adjourn the meeting then, if there's hearing no other new business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Greg, motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All right. We are so moved. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for coming, and I will go ahead and do a follow-up.
Thank you.
By email as I hear more, particularly about the master plan. Thanks, everyone.